Welcome to the Girl with the Comic Con Tattoo. That's me, and today we're going to be discussing a very important subject, which is going to a convention on Zippo Money a Day. Zero. Nada. Zero. So, there are several techniques for how to do this. These are just my suggestions. Certainly, if you have suggestions of your own, leave them in the comments below. Thank you. So, tip one is getting into the convention. So if you don't buy your pass, there's really only one way to get into a convention on No Money a Day, and that is to work, or to work it. I'm sorry, there's just no other way. But there are a couple of ways to do this. So one, you can volunteer to give a panel and be a professional. You talk about a subject that you're knowledgeable about. I've done several on cosplay and masquerades and stuff like that. So you can definitely do something like that. Get a group of your friends together who are like-minded and are knowledgeable on a subject and talk about something. Talk about, gender roles in comic books, talk about race in comic books, talk about cosplay, talk about hair, makeup, why you think the current remake of XYZ is fabulous or sucks balls. It's up to you. So, but you can definitely do that. The other option is you could become a member of the press or do a vlog like I do and get a press pass. I am coming to, in about, I think it's like 2 weeks time at this point, I will be at WhoCon, which is a local Doctor Who convention, and I got a press pass because I do a vlog and I offer to share my footage with them. So check me out there. Link in the description. But aside from doing those two things, the next best thing is to volunteer. And honestly, I have only ever gone to one convention where I wasn't a volunteer, and it drove me batty. I was bored out of my mind. I went to Phoenix Comic Con with a friend because she wanted to check it out, and yeah, I thankfully have friends in Phoenix, and I basically called them up and was like, hey, let's have lunch. Let's go do something, because I could not work at a convention. I was bored to tears. But aside from that, it's a great way to learn how a convention runs and get an insider knowledge of what goes on at a convention. And see it just from a different angle, and you can appreciate the people that work for it. And usually you're only working a couple of hours. You're working, I think most conventions are right around 4-hour shifts. You work a 4-hour shift and you get your badge for the rest of the day. And then you just do that every year. And if you're really good, they'll ask you back, and you've gotten into your convention for free. Woo! 2, transportation. I don't have a tip on this. There's no way to get transported for free unless somebody drives you. So, as they said in the 70s, ass, grass, or cash. So I suppose, one of those options is not good if you're a woman. Don't take rides from strangers. Don't do it. Yeah, there's no way to get to a convention for free. Sorry. 3. So 3 is like 2. There aren't really good options for housing for free for a convention. Certainly if you go into a town that you know that you have friends at, like I have friends that live in and around Seattle, Phoenix, and I suppose my mom lives close enough to New York that I could probably wrangle that. But the idea is that unless you know somebody close to where you're going who will let you bum on and sleep on their couch, there aren't really a lot of good options to do it for free. But there are a couple of options. And I definitely advise severe caution with these because they can be dangerous, whether you're male or female or whatever in between. So there is a service that is, I saw it online once. I'm not sure if it's still operating. Certainly after that I shoot this, if I find it, I'll put it in the link below. But it is like couchsurfing.net or .com or something like that. And basically random people will let you come and sleep on their couch or in their spare bedroom if they have one of those for a couple of nights. Now, these are people you don't know. They're kind of random people. I heard about this during Katrina, where people were letting other people come and sleep on their couches. And I heard that there's a website for it outside of what was going on with Katrina. So there's certainly, options if, that is an option for you. It's sort of like Airbnb, but it's like free or nominal, and you're just sleeping on somebody's couch. The other option, and this I would only really suggest for big conventions. Small conventions generally don't have programming that runs all night where you could do this, but if you're going to a large convention like Comic-Con, it is quite possible to just not ever get a hotel room. I know people used to sleep, or at least quietly lounge in the anime and film rooms that would go all night at Comic-Con. So certainly if your convention has 24-hour programming and they have overnight movie rooms that you can sort of camp out in, that's always an option. And as far as the hygiene goes, for that, the options are, by Sunday you smell ooh bad, get away from me, or and I almost hesitate to say this because I've never tried it, I've never seen anybody do it, but a friend of mine did once suggest that you could always, at least here in San Diego, go to the beach and use the showers at the beach to at least rinse off a little bit. So that's always a possibility as well. These are two options that I don't necessarily recommend, one for safety reasons and two for hygiene reasons. But certainly they are possible, so you can definitely do those if you want to go to a convention for free with free housing. So there you go. 4. 4 is food. 4 is for food. Yes. So eating during a convention is uber important. Especially if you're going full bore, you go to a large convention, you need to eat. Otherwise you'll just pass out and people will loot your corpse, because gamers do that. So that's a joke, BTW. I think. I've never heard of anybody looting somebody at Comic-Con who's passed out, but it's always possible. Anyway, so food is super important, and you can actually, this is one of the easier ones to do. So there's a couple of options. You can definitely pack your own food that travels well and will keep you going. When I was a teenager, my mother used to make me this Italian pasta salad. It was super awesome. I ate so much of it as a child because I was going to conventions all the time, and that I can't stand the sight of it now. But you can definitely do something like that that travels really well, and gives you a lot of carbohydrates to burn through throughout the day. one of the other options is, you know, packing yourself a sandwich or a lunch, which is usually what I do now because I don't pay for con food, because con food can be very expensive. And if you have no money, or you're just being tight with your money and controlled, that's not like a super great way to spend your money. So, but that also leads into most conventions, big or small, have a con suite. If they are larger, they usually only have them for like a couple hours in the evening. I know that Comic Con and WonderCon do that. Their con suites are in the evenings, for a couple of hours, and they have food and drinks. Typically they're snacks. They're not like actual food. So it's like chips and red vines and sodas and iced tea and water and things like that. But that can be a really good way to do it. You just sit there and load up on chips and sodas, and usually they're canned. Sometimes you can get away with getting like a bottle of water, and so you can grab a couple of those, throw them in your bag, and that way you have liquid the next day. Or bring a water bottle. I really, as I mentioned in my essentials video, link up here, that I always make sure that I bring like a bottle for water, because dehydration is very bad. Some of the smaller conventions will have a more robust con suite. I've been to quite a few where the con suites will have things like eggs and peanut butter and bread and stuff like that, so you can get like maybe not like actual food, but more filling, more, you know, better for you food, like vegetables and eggs, hard-boiled eggs, and you know, bread and peanut butter and stuff like that, in addition to your sodas and your waters. And if you are going to a convention, you can always reach out, find out if they have a con suite, and if you drink something weird, Dr. Pepper, which I don't think is weird, but I always have a hard time finding it at conventions. So at least with the local conventions, I know the people who do it because it's a local convention. I do a lot of local conventions, so I'll reach out and I'll let them know that I'm planning on going to a convention. And I'll just say, hey, I'm planning on coming. Can you make sure that you have Dr. Pepper for me? And that way I get Dr. Pepper. So, and that's not just because I'm friends with these people and I know them. That's just an option. You can just reach out and be like, hey, I just want to make sure that you have this diet soda or this diet soda. You know, you don't need to stock, they don't need to stock a ton of it, they just need to stock, you know, a couple of cans for you. And they might discover you're not the only one, and that soda goes really fast, and next year there'll be more of it. So it works for everybody. But yes, con suites are a great way to feed yourself at a convention for free. Five, I think, or six. So, lastly, and this is the hardest one, swag and buying stuff. If you're going to a convention with no money at all, I recommend staying off that con floor if you absolutely can, because you'll be severely tempted. I went to Fangia and I had no money, and just about everywhere I went had something I wanted. And it was all fairly cheap stuff. It was, you know, $5 here, $3 there. But it was money, and money I didn't have, so I couldn't buy anything. But there's definitely always something that you're going to want to buy no matter where you go. So I recommend staying away from the floor. Now, the flip side of that is that you can get a ton of stuff at conventions for free. There are always, at your larger conventions, there's always going to be somebody promoting something, that you will get, you know, maybe it's a cheesy postcard, maybe it's a sticker. At Comic-Con, Kraken Dice, and that's Kraken with a K, like the octopus Kraken, was giving away stickers. So I got a bunch of Kraken Dice stickers, which are now proudly sported on my laptop. So, but you can get a bunch of stuff like that. Kind of gone are the heydays where I would go to Comic-Con. I would come home with like suitcases full of swag. But you can still get quite a bit of swag at Comic-Con. And at smaller conventions, I've picked up books that authors are like, well, here, I want people to read this and you can have a copy for free. I've picked up, you know, ribbon badges. You go to fan badges. Let me show you. See? WhoCon. This is a WhoCon ribbon that promotes their convention. I love that logo. I love the surfing doctor. So very appropriate for San Diego. But you can get things like these at fan tables. You can get stickers. You can even, like I said, you can get books. I've gotten Legos before. If there's a scavenger hunt for a bigger brand, they may do something really cool. You do the scavenger hunt and you get a Lego, or you go off and you do this thing and you get this other thing. So there's a lot of different ways you can pick up swag. Sometimes you put your name on a mailing list. Sometimes you just talk to somebody and they will have something. They'll be like, oh, well, hey, I'm promoting this thing, have this thing to help me promote it. All for free. And sometimes the best stuff is free stuff, to be quite honest with you. So there you go. So those are my tips on how to go to a convention for no money. And certainly if you have tips or comments or anything like that that you want to share, something that I missed, please leave them in the comments below. And be sure, if you enjoyed this, to like and subscribe. Make sure that you hit that bell notifications so that you get the notifications whenever I put out a video. But I do put out new videos every Wednesday, and I will see you in the next one.